Okay, welcome back to the table. We're going to do video 2 here. I explained a teeny bit of the rules during the setup. I may have to repeat myself in a few spots, but for the most part, I tried to spare most of the rules explanation for the playthrough, so that way we can, those people who want to see the playthrough can understand what the heck's going on and not just see me do a bunch of actions and and then it fails. So the primary thing, before we even start doing the sequence of play, let's talk about the symbology on the board and just give you a basic lay of land, okay? First things first, like we explained in the setup, the victory points here, the French are trying to get it to 30, the British are trying to get it to 0. It's a literal tug of war. If the French score points, it moves forward. If the English score points, it moves backwards. And so you eventually want to get it to 30 or 0, okay? That is the primary goal of the game. There's a couple other ways to win. I actually ended up winning one of those ways, and the score was somewhere here in the 20s. But to be quite honest with you, if you win some of these other ways, you're already winning the game. It's just you're saving the other player the extra 30 to 40 minutes it would have taken to get to this outcome of scoring the 30 points or whichever way you're going, right? But we'll talk about those as we go. Okay, next with symbology, you do have a global demand market. Pay extra special attention to that. Do not ignore it like I did. You will lose, and you will lose fast if you do, okay? Now, we talked about the 4 regions. Real quick, we'll go through those again. The 4 regions of India. This is a region here, India. And they're represented by these circles. It's a really cool board. India is further broken up into 2 zones: the Carnatic zone and then the Hooghly River. I'll pronounce that wrong the whole game. There you go. Now, a few things we didn't explain during setup is every region, these circles, there's 4 circles, 4 regions. Every region has 2 trade goods. So this yellow trade good here looks like a bowl of rice, is actually spice, and then this is cotton. So you got spice and cotton in India. And it doesn't matter which zone, it's the same resources in both of the zones. Why are there 2 zones? Largely because some of these, like this guy here, only impacts this zone down here and not that one, because it just represents 2 different areas. Now, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but during the first turn, during the play sequence, we're going to reveal this award here, and that's going to be based on the region. And so it'll make more sense when we get to it. I'll wait till we get to that spot. Okay, so moving on, we have Europe up here, which consists of a whole bunch of places, of course. The one thing to call out is that there's 2 spots that are shaded in green. You can't use those spots until the Empire era. And one of the errata in the rules is that these are shaded in green, but that's not true. You can use those right away. So you don't have to wait till the Empire era to use these 2 spots right here. And yes, we're going to explain what these spots mean. There are no trades or resources in Europe. This is all about imperialism, and hence it's called Imperial Struggle. So the West Indies, your 2 goods are sugar and tobacco. So make sure you remember that and note that. There are no zones in this one. This is just one region only. So sugar and tobacco. Okay. So then in the North American region, there are 2 zones. I think this is called the colonies, and then that's Canada. And the 2 resources are furs and fish. Okay? So those are some things to understand. And remember, per the setup, the solid red background gets the British flag, the solid blue gets the French, and as a result of that, you can see here that the French have this space, and there's a black line, and then this little pentagon, and that means the Algonquin raids actually starts with the French player. So I didn't cover that during setup. The Algonquin Reds start with the French player. These little tiles unlock when you control. So if this flag were to go here, the British player automatically gets this tile into their tableau. Okay. Now the British player starts with one as well. They start with wheat. And that's also unlocked from North America right here. So they get the wheat tile. Forgot to cover that during setup. And okay, so now let's go through basic rules so we can start the game. And then also I want to point out something that I mentioned during setup. We are playing with the Spanish optional rules, and we also are playing with the advanced military rules. My recommendation to you is do not play the basic military rules. I think it's crap. But, you know, the good thing is they gave you options. So we're going to play with the advanced military. I'll explain the difference when we get there. The Spanish ones are real simple. You just don't start with these 3 flags if you're not playing with the Spanish rules. Okay, let's get into some basic functions of the game. All right. The board, as you can see, has a lot of things. If you're familiar with like D-Day Omaha Beach, it has all those dots, and at first it's really intimidating when you look at it. But once you learn the game and you understand why everything is where it is, it's brilliant. And this is one of those games where everything is brilliant once you understand it. Okay, so first things first, we have diamonds. So diamonds are what you call diplomacy spaces. There's 3 types of actions in this game. There's diplomacy, there's military, and there's economic. Just 3, that's it. So the diplomacy actions affect the diplomacy spaces. So that's why you have diamonds or diplomacy. And all of Europe is diamonds, by the way, except for the Navy spots. We'll talk about those later. But so Europe is all about diplomacy. In India, as you can see, there's not that many diamonds, but there are a few. There's one here, and there's one here, and then there's a third one. I know there's a third one, I just don't see it right now. Oh, it's down here underneath the camera, right where my finger is. It's down below this. Okay, so those are diplomacy. What are the economic ones? It may be common sense, but they're going to be the circle ones, and the economic ones, of course, are going to have resources tied to them. So all the resource spaces, or the circles, whichever way you want to look at it, those are the economic spaces. You spend economic points to go and influence those spaces, okay? And then the third type of space is a territory, which is the square. Now, you would think you would spend military points to do that. You do not. In fact, territories have very special rules. We'll get into those in a second. What you spend your military points on is to take forts and these pentagons, basically. So there's this fort here. I'm sorry, that's not a fort. This is a fort. So this is a fort. It's got the pentagon with a number in it. So you spend military points to take forts. You spend military points to position a navy. I know this looks like it's in the middle of land, but it's actually on the river. And so this is a navy spot. I know that's a little confusing. Like everything else was so elegant. Diamonds for diplomacy, circles for economics. You spend diplomacy points on diamonds. You spend economic points on circles, but you spend your military points on, oh, not the tile, not this. So yeah, military points are spent on the pentagons, and there's 2 types. There's a fort, and then there's a navy. And those are the only non-diamond spaces. Well, okay, I apologize. There's some territories here, but there's non-diamond spaces that you can act on there, and those are both navy spaces. Now, there are some spaces like here that you can't use until the Americans exist. So if the Americans don't exist, you never use those spaces the whole game. And just like there's those green spaces over there, there is a diplomacy space here that is purple. Remember, purple represents this era. This is our turn track. So we will have 2 succession turns, 2 empire turns, and 2 revolutionary turns. This space does not unlock until we get to the purple revolutionary. And remember, the way it works is we do a peace turn, a war, peace, peace, war, peace. It just goes along like that. There will be 6 peace turns and 4 war turns in the game. Okay? All right. Next. So we covered those. So what's the deal with the territories? Why are they so important? Well, this game has a unique concept. I mean, it's got... I guess it's unique. I don't know. The territories can only be conquered during a war. Remember how we talked about there's peace steps and war steps? If you're in a peace turn, you can't take a territory. Never, ever, ever. So France will never lose Guadeloupe no matter what happens during a peace turn. But during a war turn, it is possible that they can lose a territory. And so what does that mean? Well, you see these solid lines and you see these dashed lines. The dashed lines are used for conquering territory. They're only used during war, the dashed lines. The solid lines are used during peacetime. So that's something to factor in. And yes, these square tiles are victories or spoils of war. Let's put it that way. Now, many times in a war, it is still possible you won't lose territory, but it all depends on how well you do in the war. And, you know, the wars will award you points, and we'll go over that when we address that in a second. But just understand that these can only be lost as conquer points in a war. So there's diplomacy points, there's economic points, and there's military points, but those are spent during peacetime. In a war, there's this thing called conquer points, and they only exist during the 4 wars in the game. Okay, I hope that makes some sense. And I'm sorry if I stuttered a little bit as I collected my thoughts to figure out how best to explain it. I hope that that makes better sense now. What's next? It was on the tip of my tongue. My apologies. The types of actions you can do are written on your board. So, for example, for diplomacy, the diplomacy symbol, let's go over that. The diplomacy symbol is the quill. And there's 2 actions you can do with diplomacy. You're either drawing an event or you're shifting political spaces. Those are those diamonds. For the economic, you're shifting economic spaces. You're doing that. That's all you do with the economic ones. You're just fighting over those resource spaces. Okay? And then for the war, there's a lot of choices for the war. And that's the reason why I was stuttering a little bit. And that reminded me of what I wanted to talk about. Forts cannot be lost during peacetime. That's another thing. You can't lose territories. You also can't lose forts. However, there's 2 exceptions. This fort's empty. Nobody controls it, so you can obtain that during peacetime. So you can build the fort, basically, is what that represents. And then the second one is it is possible for a fort to be damaged. And this occurs during the war. So during those 4 wars, you can damage a fort. If a fort is damaged, then during peacetime, it is possible to conquer a fort. But it's also possible for the player to repair the fort, and that would prevent you from conquering it. So there's a little bit of cat and mouse with that, but I just wanted to make sure you knew that. Now the Navy, on the other hand, they get what's called displaced. So navies can displace each other all the time, whereas the forts are more permanent. And when you're formulating your strategy for the game, that's an extremely important one to understand. Okay, so did I cover at least the basic gist of the rules so we can just dive in and play? I think yes. And I know some of you had to wait 14 minutes just to see the first step of the game, and that's annoying for you, and I apologize. But since I don't do this for money, I'll return all the money I spent or charged you for your ticket. So let's get back to this, and I'll try to bring up the sequence of play, and we can go through that. So this is a peace turn, and then down here over the right is a war turn. Okay, the war turns are very simple. The peace turn, though, there's one more thing we got to do because we're playing the advanced military rules. or even with the basic, you still have to do it. Okay, so let's talk about the war. Right now, the War of Spanish Succession is the first war of the game that we're going to deal with. And let me just get the camera stable so you can see it. Now, one thing that has confused every player that's played is this whole tile is the war. Because, see, there's 4 wars in the game. 1, 2, 3, 4. This tile is double-sided, and there's 2 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Double-sided, right? But when I've had people over to play, and they don't know because they didn't set up the game like I did, and I tell them there's 4 wars in a game, they think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. They think this is the entire game. That's not true. When we resolve this war step right here, we're resolving all 4. This is basically one war that's going on in 4 regions of the world. So that's the way you need to understand it. So there's going to be a war in Central Europe. There's battles there. There's going to be a battle in Spain. There's going to be the Queen Anne's War, and then the Jacobite Rebellion. And this is all part of the War of Spanish Succession. Does that make sense? I know you're not able to tell me if it does or doesn't, but that's the extremely, extremely important thing to understand. And then now let's go ahead and let me go over just a few more things so you can understand what this is saying. So the War of Central Europe is you're going to have tiles, and I'm going to just draw one from the British here. This one actually is a -1, but then it gives you like this special ability with the X on it. There's another one, like this one has a +1, okay? You're going to add up your tiles, and that's going to give you a base strength, right? So it could even be a negative number, but you're going to have strength versus the French. So let's say the French have 2 and the British have -1. Well, it looks like the French is winning. However, you then add strength from Austria, Bavaria, all these different places. And so one thing I haven't explained yet is if we look at Austria and Bavaria, so let's look at the Dutch Republic there. So you can see the British actually have the flag on the right side of the Dutch Republic, but the left side has what's called alliance. So they're both diplomacy spaces, but the one on the right is a prestige diplomacy space, and you can tell it's a prestige space because it has the green border. The one on the left is an alliance space. Now, this particular war we were looking at in Central Europe does have the Dutch Republic listed. So if you have a flag on the left side, the side that has alliance, Dutch Republic will give you 1 point of strength towards the war. Now, you may notice that the alliance also has those pips around the edge. So there's the 1 pip on the top left, 2 pips on the top right, and 3 pips on the bottom right. What that means is the Dutch Republic will participate in the first war, the second war, and the third war. So the only one they're not participating in is the American Revolution. Okay, but they'll participate in the Spanish Succession, the Austrian Succession, and the 7 Years' War. So they give you strength points. Okay, does that make sense? I hope it does. It's a real key thing about the game. And again, I know folks want to see the playthrough, but this is very, very important to understand. All right, now getting back to this, the Dutch Republic, as you can see here, helps with this war. But if you go to this one, the Dutch Republic has nothing to do with that. The Dutch Republic does help again with this one. So the Dutch Republic is actually a double nice one. Whereas some of these, like Bavaria, I don't think you'll ever see Bavaria again listed in any of these. So Bavaria is a one-trick wonder, whereas the Dutch Republic actually gives you bonuses in 2 different wars within this war chart. So I hate to say it, and this is maybe the biggest gripe people have had, is you have to study this before you play. If you don't understand where all the bonus strengths are coming from, you're going to be playing at a huge disadvantage to your opponent. Now, what's the deal? So remember I said the French had 3 and the British had -1. Let's say we go through all this and it stays that way. It doesn't always work out like that. Like, it's possible the British could have won once you add up these, but then the margin of victories. So if the French win by 1 or 2, they get 2 victory points, but the loser still gets something. Or if they win by 5 or more, that's like a resounding victory. They get 3 victory points, and then they get this thing called 2 conquer points. And that's what we were just talking about. That's how you can take territory. Now, this particular war, though, has very specific territory you can conquer. So when you get those conquer points, you can only spend them here. Now, this particular war, the Queen Anne's War, when you get conquer points from this one, it doesn't tell you where you can spend them, and then you get some choices. But we're getting ahead of ourselves there. So why do we need to talk about some of this now? Well, because per the rules, you're going to draw 4 random basic war tiles. So I'm going to draw 1, 2, 3, and 4, like that. And then I'm going to, off camera here, just grab 4 from the British. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, here's the British ones. So the basic game is that these are randomly placed onto this thing. You get to look at them after they're placed, but you don't get to look at them before they're placed. The advanced war rules is you get to look at them and then decide where they're placed. So we resoundingly love the advanced rules more. This seems way too randomish. I mean, the game does give you some basic mitigations, so you can move them around, like as the game plays. But to be quite honest, we want to have some control. We felt like there's a lot more strategy involved when you're choosing where they go. Now, with that said, I'm playing against an AI here, which is going to be Britain. I'm going to play as France. So I'm playing against Britain, and Britain I'm going to place randomly and not look at them. So I don't know what they have. So that way I can't math the game, right? And because, see, I really love looking at my tiles and saying, okay, I want this one to go here and this one to go there. Well, you know what? Even if we did randomly place them, I get to see them the moment they go down. So I'm going to play advanced rules. I'm going to go ahead and look at it. Now, if you want a tougher challenge, don't do advanced rules, especially against an AI. I mean, if you're playing against another human, I totally recommend the advanced rules. So I'm going to show you the advanced rules. So if this was a regular game with the basic rules, the British player randomly put those out, and then they would now get to look at them. So just understand that. But since we don't have a British player here, I'm going to get to see them. So I'm going to just lay them here so you can see. So I got some special ones and some not so special ones. So, okay, this one's a straight up +2. And, this is a very tough choice as always. Okay, so what does this one do? That one is, obviously it's 0 strength, and what it does is you force the opposing player to gain debt. If they ever hit their debt limit, which is here, and then they have to go past their debt limit, you score a victory point. So it's possible you can flood them with debt, or if they take on debt on their own, and then you and you slap them with a bunch of these, you could score some points. It's a little, it's an interesting mechanic, let's just put it that way. This one, which is why we recommend that you play the advanced rules. This says you can damage a fort or remove a ship. Not every war has a fort or a ship. Like the Central Europe war region doesn't have either. Now you might be saying, well, hold on a second, Jeff. There's 2 ships right here. That's in Europe, and this says that it's in Europe. However, ships aren't involved in this war. They're involved here and here. So that's where the squadrons get used in the Spain war. So you have to be really careful because let's say I put this here on the Central Europe war, it's useless. There's no fort to damage and there's no ship to remove in that entire war. So this is a very wasted token there. All right, now this one, you actually lose a point of strength, but then you get to remove a flag. Now remember, you can't remove it from a territory, but you could remove it from anywhere else. And that could actually swing the war in your favor, which is why they give you a -1. I personally don't care for these that much. The -1 is not worth it because all you're doing is taking away, like if let's say you remove a flag from someone else, well, you're just doing a -1 to them. Now, one strategy is I can put it here, the -1, because since the Dutch Republic is used here and also used there, you resolve these in order. And if you remove the Dutch Republic flag from here, it also gets removed from there. So this one tile is giving you actually 2 bonus points. Like if you're really getting into level 6, 3D chess, that's one way to play this. But you're banking on the fact that your opponent's going to have the Dutch Republic. And my attitude is why not take the Dutch Republic for yourself and make him do that to you? So I really find this to be a crappy one, but that's how it would be used. Okay, so the Jacobite Rebellion is a chance for a lot of victory points, but it doesn't help you in any other way. Now, victory points is how you win, so you may say, well, that's worth it. But the Jacobite Rebellion, like if you do participate in a Queen Anne's War, that's helping you set up for the longer term. The other thing is in the beginning of the game, you're not set up to win any of these wars. So my recommendation is you focus on one area and just that one area, and sort of let the other 3 ones, like for example, this is really nice because you can just damage something. So I'm going to do that for Queen Anne's War. I'm going to damage something. And then for the debt, I'm going to put that on the Jacobite Rebellion. And then the +2, I could put on Spain. I'm going to put it on... Ooh. You know what? I'm going to put this on the Jacobite Rebellion. And then the debt on Spain. And let's try to get +2 in the war in Europe. Okay, so there you have it. Now, normally these would be face down, right? Because you don't want your opponent to see what they are, but our opponent is blind. So I'm going to leave them face up so you can see what I chose to do. And yes, I know I'm at a weird angle, so there, if you want to pause your screen and study this, you can. If you have your own player aid at home, the back side here has the bonus strength guide, which lists everything. And yeah, so 27 minutes in, let's start step 1. Now you're going to find that we actually did a bunch of these already. So first phase, the deck phase, it's only done on turn 3 and 5 because during setup we already did it. And that's just shuffling the deck. And then during turn 3 and 5, we're going to shuffle in the green and then later the purple. That's all this is saying. This one, step 2, also only done on turns 3 and 5. The debt limit goes up by 4. So the debt limit will actually get higher, so you can have more debt. The award phase, it's really complicated the way it's written, but it's very simple. You have 2 award tiles here. See? You got 1, 2, okay? You have 2 peace turns in every era. It's that simple. Kaboom, processing bamboozlement. That's the link. So what you did is you have 2 tiles here, okay? For the turn 1, the first peace turn, we're going to use this tile, and then for the second peace turn, we're going to reveal that. We don't know what it is, and it's supposed to be a secret. So we put them right on top of each other like that, so you don't get confused. So what does this award mean? During the victory check, or the scoring phase, which is step 12, you count up all your flags. So right now, for example, the French have 1, 2, 3, 4 flags. Okay, let me zoom out a little. French have 4 flags. The British have 1, 2, 3, 4. Nobody's a winner. If the French had 5 flags, they would score a victory point. That's what that means. So there's a battle in this region for you to have the most flags. And the zones don't matter, in case you're wondering. It's the whole region. Okay, and then you come over to here. And we're talking about the Indies, and their award box is right here. So we reveal that, and it's also a 1 victory point. Same rules with the flags. And then in Europe, same rules with the flags. And this is an interesting one. So this one, you get 2 victory points, but see that little red 2? You got to win by a margin of 2. So if you have 6 flags and they have 5, nobody gets anything. If you have 7 flags and they have 5, then you get 2. Then also Europe has a special rule. The green border areas, whoever has the most of the prestige spaces gets 2 victory points, always. So the total flags count towards the award marker, but only the green border flags count towards the victory points. Well, the ones that's printed on the board. So Europe awards 2 awards, one for prestige and one for the actual award tile. And then in North America, it's 1 victory point and you get a trade point. So what's a trade point? That's a treaty point, I mean, that's these. And basically, think of them as like debt. So when you go into debt, you do that to get bonus actions, which I haven't explained yet. Treaty points also give you bonus actions, but you don't have to go into debt for it. So you're using whatever treaty to give you an edge to get some extra actions. Okay. That's it. That's the award phase. Now, why does it say 1, 3, and 5? Well, it's just, all it's explaining to you is on turn 2, all you do is flip over the other one. And then on turn 3, you're going to have to reshuffle all these and redistribute them. That's all that's trying to explain. Okay, the global demand phase we did, but let's just go over that real quick. That's the resource markers. There's 6 of them, and we shuffled them, and there's 3 resources in demand: fur, fish, and spice. Okay. Now, what's the award for these during the scoring? At the end of the peace turn, we will score for whoever has the most flags in fur, most flags in fish, most flags in spice, and the award is written here for the succession era. And then as you move into the different eras, the award changes. Some things to keep in mind: furs are worth a fortune in the beginning, and then as you progress, they actually become worth less and less. So the economy changes. Pretty neat aspect of the game. Also, very important to point out that spice, fish, and tobacco, fish and tobacco have let me zoom in for you here. And I'm just trying not to bump anything on the board. That's a +1 debt. So if you win the fish battle, you get 2 victory points, but you go up 1 in debt. You don't go down, you go up, which is bad. Okay, and then if you win the spice battle, you actually go down in debt. So that's an interesting thing. You'll get victory points, but you'll have to increase your debt in a few spots. And then, of course, spice reduces your debt. And furs, spice, and fish, the top 3 are actually the ones that got randomly selected for this particular, and it's just this peace turn. So we're going to do this over and over again. Every single peace turn, new global demand markers are going to be drawn. Okay? And like I said during setup, the global demand is the one swingy luck part of this game, and it can screw you over. I mean, I've seen people lose this game where the global demand markers just never came out. Like they had, tobacco locked up, but the tobacco was never drawn the entire game. It sucked for them. Okay. The reset phase, you don't do anything on the first round, but basically you're removing all your exhausted markers. So we'll talk about that later. Deal card phase. Okay, so first thing it says is reveal 9 new tiles. We actually did that. We revealed those 9 tiles right there. And then deal 3 event cards to each player. So these are the events. So we have one for the British, 1 for the French, 2 French, British, 3, and 3. Okay, this is the part that's tough. The British player, of course, being the AI, it's really hard to determine whether they should use these event cards or not, but I'm just going to set them over here and not look at them. And then I'm going to set mine over here for now. But yes, you get 3 event cards. You are allowed to look at them, so you don't have to do what I'm doing. I'm just trying to figure out what's the best way to AI this. Okay, then we have the ministry phase. So the first turn of each era, which is what we're in, we're going to select 2 ministry cards and place them face down. So this is going to require some explanation. And if you're here to watch the actual I mean, you are watching the actual game. I mean, we're already on step 7 of the game. So please don't go bonkers in the comments about how you just sat through 35 minutes and have yet to see a single turn. You're seeing the turn being taken. But this action phase, I promise, will be the next video. So if you want to move on, you can move on to the action phase. But this is going to take the rest of this video to explain. And the initiative phase we already covered. The French start with the initiative. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to resolve my ministers and my events before even looking at the British. And then we'll set up the British afterwards. So a couple of things. The event cards are going to look like this. There's a lot going on. This is like the most complicated part of the game. First is the left side. So let me position it so you can see what I'm talking about. The left side. So you see those, everybody keeps calling them crosses. I think they're daggers, but they probably are crosses. But these right here and those symbols there are the first thing we're going to talk about. Those are prerequisites to play the event. Okay, so first things first. I know I say that a lot, but you have tiles. I'm going to grab 2 of the 9 tiles that we drew. Okay, this tile gives you 4 economic action points and 2 military minor points. Major versus minor, there is some subtle differences, but it is important to understand the distinction. This one gives you 3 economic points and 2 diplomacy points. Okay, now what's the difference? Well, you can see here the little cross or dagger is on this one. This one lets you play a bonus or event card. This one does not let you play an event card. What we're going to do during the action phase is we're going to take turns drawing these, and if I draw this one, I can play an event card with it. If I draw this one, I cannot play an event card with it. That's a huge thing. Now, what goes even further is that this one has a diplomacy and that one has a military. So this one lets me play an event card, and the only event card in my hand I could play is this one right here. This one requires military, that one requires diplomacy. Now you might be saying, well, hold on, Jeff, there's diplomacy right here. It's a minor action. These have to be major. Okay, it has to be the major action. And if we come over here and look at the 9 that we drew, I'm going to use my pen here. You can see this one would let me play the diplomacy one, and this one would let me play the military one that I have. But there's only 1 tile for each of those available. So if the other player takes this one, for example, then I'm screwed. I can't play my event card. Now, one thing I'll tell you is I'm a fan of the event cards to a detriment, meaning that I try to figure out how to play all 3 of my event cards every round because I love them. But this is just like the coin games. If you've ever played those, some event cards are really powerful and some of them are just crap. And I need to have more discernment on which ones are crap because sometimes it's not in my best interest to play an event card. The other thing you'll notice is this one has less points than that one. So you get more action points if you're willing to forego your event card. Those are important distinctions in the game. You can actually give yourself an edge if you have weak event cards by just letting the other player play their event cards, and then you get the better tiles. It's all part of the strategy. Okay? This is also why it's really tough to solitaire this game. This particular phase right now, extremely tough because I got to make some decisions for the AI, and then that's going to give me insight on what the AI wants to do. If I'm playing a real game, I know let's say this is the one I really want to play. I may want to draw that military tile badly, but maybe, you know, the British player doesn't even have a military one that they want to play. And so maybe I can wait and get it later. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on in this game that having that knowledge of what cards the other player has sort of ruins just a little bit. But okay, so now that we covered the prerequisites to play these, what do they do? Well, there's 2 types of event cards. There's this one, which, let me zoom in again. This one is just a basic, it does something, and it doesn't matter if it's British or French. And then this one does something for the British and something different for the French. Okay, so it just depends on which side of this event you're on. If you're a British player, you must do this one. If you're a French player, you must do this one. There is no, this isn't like the coin games where you get to choose. So in our case, we're France. This one is we would broker a treaty and we get to shift Russia. If it's already French flag, we score 2 victory points instead, and it gives us a bonus action point in diplomacy. Okay, that's what this one does. This one, the bonus only happens if we match the bonus criteria, which I haven't discussed yet. This one has a bonus of scholarship. Don't get confused. You don't get scholarship. This is the prerequisite to get the bonus that's listed down here. This is what you get if you match that criteria. So I have scholarship, I have style, and I have mercantilism. Okay. Obviously I don't know what the British ones say yet, but there's some that just say you have to have more available debt than, you have to have more available debt than the other player, which means you're less in debt than they are. Or some will say you need to have more tiles in Spain than the other player. So it's not always these little keywords. And so what do those keywords mean? Well, that's where these ministers come in. So we have these ministers, we get to play 2 of them, and you'll see that one has the word governance. There's the mercantilism, and this one is both style and scholarship. So he has 2 keywords, okay? So we may be compelled to play this minister card just so we can get the bonus on 2 of our events. That's one way to play it. And that's the way, like I told you, I play to my detriment. My son Josh ignores the bonuses and he goes after whatever the key text is because that's more important. So every one of these ministers does something for you, and you may want to pick them just for their power. They give you like a special power, and they also give you a keyword. You get both. Now this governance keyword is useless because our events don't have governance written on them. Now, key distinction. When you pick a minister card, it is played face down. So only when you choose to use the card for its keyword or for its text do you flip it over and reveal it to the other player. You never have to reveal these to the other player until you want to use whatever's written on it. If, for example, you get through the end of phase peace turn 1 and you move to peace turn 2, you don't get to, you can swap, well, if it's face down, you can swap this out and pick a different minister. But let me just tell you that if you went through a whole peace turn without using this minister card, you wasted it because this text or whatever bonus it gave you, you never used. It's a little inefficient, let's put it that way. Now, let's say you did use it. Well, once you use your minister cards, both of them, you know, they're side by side on your player board, well, then you move to peace turn 2. Well, you're going to draw 3 new event cards. You have no idea what the key bonus words are going to be for those event cards. So it's possible, and I hope I'm representing my son correctly, like he'll pick the governance, even though all 3 event cards don't say governance on them. He'll pick this, and then he'll get lucky possibly in the next round and draw some governance event cards. It is very possible. Or I can pick like this, you know, the mercantilism one, because that's what my event card says. But then I never draw another mercantilism event card the entire, you know, turn 2. Just understand that your ministers are locked once you reveal them. So if you reveal them and use them in turn 1, which I recommend that you do. So don't like get crafty and say, I'm going to just hold on to them until I see what comes in. I'm sure there's some strategy that someone can concoct to do that. I just don't think it's wise. Your ministers are going to be used for both of these turns, not just one. And if you can understand that, then you got what you need to move on. Okay, so with all that said, this one, Style and Scholarship, matches 2 of my events. So I get a 2 for 1 if I just have this one minister in my court. So what I would do is I would put him here face down. I'm going to put it face up because we're playing alone. Now I want to point out some other things. This war tile here, which I will show you through this instead. This is the same representation of that war tile I just pointed to, the war sheet, right? So that war sheet is represented here. So you can see, like, if I want to win Central Europe, I need to influence Austria, Bavaria, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. Governance is necessary for Spain. So if you have a governance minister, it's going to give you +1 to that strength in battle. The Jacobite Rebellion uses style, and we chose style. Okay, is that making sense? So this minister is gonna give me +1 strength in the Jacobite Rebellion war as part of the war phase. Okay, so one of the things you may want to do is pick the governance. Again, that's a Josh strategy because you want the help in the war. And then he's banking on the fact that maybe his next 3 event cards will give him governance. So let's talk about it. The only event card I didn't cover was this one. So let's look at it. So it would give me 2 economic points in North America only. And then as a bonus, I can unflag a local alliance in North America. Right now, Britain has 0 local alliances in North America. So this bonus is actually not even useful to me, but it might be later as we play. So just because it's not useful to me now, maybe as the turns progress it will be. But I think we can safely say that this might be a bonus I don't need. Although the 2 market in North America is very powerful, especially considering 2 of the resources, fish and fur, are in North America. So North America is going to be where a lot of conflict's going to happen. Okay, so again, if this is your first game, this is going to overwhelm you a bit. And you're going to probably have to just say, okay, screw it, I'm just going to pick a few. But just to get into, I wanted to demonstrate the strategy of this game. There's a lot of strategy in this step. The ministers that we have do various things. The Jacobite Uprising minister is a tough one. Basically, you can spend military points to shift spaces. Normally in Scotland and Ireland. Scotland and Ireland, as you can see, are diplomacy spaces. So you would need diplomacy points to shift them. This is saying you can use military points to shift them. Let me just set something straight. Military points is the most coveted points in the game. And I'm not saying that economic and diplomacy is not important. I'm just saying you never have enough military points to do everything you want to do. So if you're going to spend military points to do diplomatic things, I mean, it's a waste. Okay, but the strength of this card is during your action rounds, which we haven't gotten into what the action rounds look like, but you basically get 4. You get 4 action rounds per turn. And you got to be really careful because a turn is peace turn 1, and action round are the 4 actions you do during peace turn 1. And you can maybe do multiple actions within the action round. It's crazy, but just bear with me on this. So what you can do is you can spend 3 military points to score victory points if you have more French flags in Scotland and Ireland than England. And right now we actually have 1 flag, they have none. So it's an interesting card. I don't recommend this for your first peace turn. So I'm setting that aside. Also, just to understand, if you win the Jacobite Rebellion, which is one of the wars going on, you can unlock the fact that this card is a free minister that you just get. So you end up getting a 3rd minister. You'll get the Jacobite Rebellion and you get Uprising, and you get 2 other ones. So this will become a free minister if you can win the Jacobite Rebellion War. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, now you got the last 3. Okay, this new world, how do you pronounce that? Huguenots? Huguenots? Huguenots. I'm sure I have friends that would say that. Huguenots? That's actually might be right. Anyways, during a French action round, you can place one of these special markers. Remember those special markers I was talking about during setup? There's special markers that you can get basically there's 2 of them. You can place it on a territory, and what this does is it makes a territory cost extra conquer points. So, for example, if I get a conquer point, I can maybe conquer something that belongs to England. Or I'm sorry, let's say England gets a conquer point. They're going to conquer something that belongs to me. Well, if I put one of these tokens on, it's now going to cost them 2 points to conquer that territory, that space, instead of 1. And so you just make things a little more expensive, and it has to be North America or Caribbean. And then you can see here, a marker increases its space by 1. It may be flipped once per game to reduce the economic cost of a market in its region by 1. So it can give you like a small, like a cost reduction on market. This one is actually not a bad one. It's fairly good, and it frustrates the British player because if they start winning battles and getting conquer points, you can really hold on to forts and other spaces with this. Okay, so now here's the thing, the key language: once per turn. That means during peace turn 1, I can place 1 Huguenot, or whatever, one of these H's. Okay, I can't place the other one, so after I place it, it's exhausted. So it's not until peace turn 2 that I can place the other one. And remember, there's 2 peace turns per minister, right? So this minister, you want to reveal him in peace turn 1 to get the first marker out, and then he'll be exhausted. Then when you go to peace turn 2, he'll unexhaust, and then you can use him again. Okay? So this is one of those ones where you definitely don't want this minister to be face down, and trying to be sneaky, until peace turn 2. So if you're going to use these guys, they're most valuable if you reveal it right away and get those markers out. And like I said, you can use the markers to give you economic benefits too, which is, it's a very solid card. I'm going to skip this real quick. This one is at the end of each peace turn, which, it's going to basically, you get to use this twice. You reduce your debt by 1. So make sure you have at least 1 debt in order to reduce it. And you can reduce it by 2 if you control spaces in Scotland. So if you have any spaces in Scotland, right now we don't, but if you did, you can reduce your debt by 2. Remember, debt is free bonus action points. So basically you're getting 2 bonus action points if you control spaces in Scotland, and controlling spaces in Scotland help you with the Jacobite Rebellion. So you can see how there's some synergy in these cards. And then this last one, which is probably their most powerful one. Once per turn, at the start of your action round, in which your investment tile has any diplomatic action. So that would be this. So see the diplomatic action? But it said any diplomat, it could be top or bottom, okay? Minor or major, okay? If you have an action that has one of those, you get 1 extra action for each of the following: Savoy, Sardinia, and any prestige spaces in Spain and Australia, up to a maximum of 3. So you can basically get free action points if you control Sardinia or Savoy. Ooh, that wasn't supposed to be there. So this space, or any of the prestige spaces in Austria, which you already have 1, or the prestige spaces in Spain. So right now, you would get 1 bonus point. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, first thing, I think this is a really nice one for when you're playing against a human, but against the AI, I'm not going to mess with that too much. I'm going to go ahead and let's try this one again. It's a governance one, so I'm going to put that on as my second minister. These other ministers just sit out. And they're actually going to, just to fill you in, these two are out of the game. Because when you move to the Empire era, I'm going to keep this one because this card's used for all 3 eras, right? But these 2 cards are only used for the Secession era. So they're more or less out of the game. Now, there is one, like I said, one crazy way that it can come back in the game. Because remember, these are face down. So if I go through the whole peace turn 1 and never use this one, but I use this one, I could theoretically replace this with one of the cards that I just told you was out of the game. I could do that. I don't intend to, which is why that rule's never been used, but that rule does exist for whatever reason. So during playtesting, there's people who have used it. And it might just simply be, because these event cards, you don't always get to play them. Because those tiles dictate whether you get to use them or not. And you can get screwed on the event cards. And then you're like, well, what's the point of this minister if I can't play the event card? And that might be a legit reason for switching your minister out. So anyways, the British player. So we're at 56 minutes. Let's try to speed it up. But basically they have, both sides get 5 governors. You can see this one is only the first 2 eras. There's none that span all 3 eras like the French. Let's start with Walpole. Once per turn you may draw 1 event card, then discard 1 event card. So this is a way to, like, if you don't like an event card, you can maybe get a new one. So you can draw a new one and then discard one. I don't find that, I mean, it's useful, but I think there's just better stuff. Walpole, if I remember correctly, wasn't he the one that solved the cholera? Like, he cleaned up the sewage, like he realized that cholera was in the water, like their sewage was getting in the water. I think that's who that guy is. I can't remember. Okay, Edmund Halley. Halley's comment. Okay, once per turn, you may spend 2 military to build a squadron instead of 4. This is very powerful. A 4-cost squadron is expensive. To be able to build a squadron for 2 is really nice. So if you want to get your Navy going in the game, he's the one you use. You can play the whole game without using the Navy, but if you want to be Navy focused, definitely consider him. And then on top of that, once per turn, remember it's turn, not action round, okay? So even though you have 4 action rounds in a game, you can only build a squadron for 2 once. So keep that in mind. Some new players screw this up and think they can just pump out a bunch of 2-cost squadrons. It's once per turn. Then here, once per turn, if you have a squadron in Europe, you may discard an event card from your hand and just take a treaty point. Now, this might be because you have event cards you're not going to use, so you might as well get a free action. So, really nice one. I like that one. This one, spaces in Ireland and Scotland cost you less to flag. He's very helpful in the Jacobite uprising, so you want to pick him to help you with the Ireland-Scotland war. There's a bunch of mini games going on with this. Like, let's say France decides to go all in on a Jacobite uprising. This could really ruin France's day. But if you go all in, maybe France is focusing somewhere else, this can also ruin France's day, right? The one thing I have against this is that it costs 1 less to, costs 1 less for you to put a flag in. So that's actually really good. This is really good for early game. If you control any spaces in Ireland, your minor diplomatic actions may be used to remove flags in Europe. We haven't talked about this yet, but the minor actions can never remove flags. And this guy lets you break that rule, but only in Europe. So again, I give this guy at least a B+. I think he's good, especially if you focus your strategy with him. And also, he gives you a style, which is a point in the Jacobite uprising battle. So he's very focused on the Jacobite stuff. Now, Bank of England is my all-time favorite. It's a finance one, so you won't get too many events that have finance, but at the start of each turn, your debt limit goes up by 1. Not your actual debt, but the limit of your debt. So you can go further into debt without it being a problem. And then also, once per turn, and this is the exhausting part, because it says at the start of each turn. Now, there is an errata out there, by the way. because this guy goes into the game face down, and it says at the start of each turn, so somebody would argue, hey, you know, the turn's already started and now you're revealing it, so it's too late to do this. You get to do this once per turn. Just get rid of the start of each turn thing. Okay, once per turn, you may play an economic event even if your selected investment tile does not have it. So that's these symbols here. So what they're saying is if you have an economic event, you can play that event without needing a tile that has that symbol in the major. So this lets you play all economic events. Doesn't matter what the actual major symbol is. Okay? I love this one, and I play it a lot. However, Josh showed me that this one is probably one of the most powerful ones. During the scoring phase, which happens at the end of every peace round, you score 1 victory point for the following unexhausted advantages you control. A maximum of 3. So textiles, silk, fruit, fur trade, and rum. Well, textiles and silk are both in India. Fur trade is in North America, and rum and fruit are in Indonesia. So if you grab 3 of those tiles, which, like for example, this is one of them, textiles, right here. Okay, it says textiles. So as long as you don't use this tile, but you just have control of it, you're going to get a victory point for that. And England starts here, and it just costs you 2 economic points to move here. You put a flag there, and then boom, you get the tile. It's that quick. So what Josh did was he kept this secret face down. So I don't know what minister he has. And so he's grabbing those tiles, and I'm not thinking anything about it, and then he just flips this over and right on his final action. And then then we do scoring phase, and then boom, he gets 1, 2, 3 points because he had 3 of them. And 3 points is a big deal in this game. So this is a nice victory point scoring, but let me just caveat it with this. He definitely got a big jump with me, and he actually won that game. And I largely consider this to be a big part of it. But long-term, the other ones might set you up for a more long-term victory. But this is still a good one. Now, the game that he pulled this on me, we drew spice and cotton. So he came here for the spice, he took this, and then he came here for the cotton and took that, which is the silk. I mean, you see what he's doing? So he got 2 of his tiles. At the same time, he was also trying to win the trade markets. At that particular game, I basically gave up in India and let him have it, thinking that, by peace turn 2, I would get different resources. So I was basically like not worrying about India because I was taking the idea that, hey, I'm going to spend all my action points on the other regions of the world. The problem was he actually beat me in turn 2 because, anyways, it's not worth getting into, but he did have some luck on his side. But anyways, he did it with this card, and it's good. So why am I going through all this? Well, first of all, it's just nice for you to know what these are. These are the only 5 ministers you start. Every game you start, you're getting these 5 ministers. That never changes. So you really need to adapt your strategy. Now, the resources, spice did come out, right? But fur and fish are the other 2. So this one may not be as helpful, although fur trade is one of them. The problem is to get the fur trade one, you need to actually get conquer points because you have to take Hudson Bay, which is not available at the beginning of the game. So fur trade's not even available at the beginning of the game. So this one may not be as useful in this game as it would if it was an India heavy thing. Bank of England's always good, but you don't have to make these decisions until you see what your event cards are. So this is the part where I'm going to see what Britain's event cards are, and it sucks because if you're playing against a real player, this is all a big surprise. So here, actually, what I'm going to try to do is not read what the events do here you can see he has 2 economic events. So what I'm going to do is maybe I'm just going to lay them, I'll lay them like this. So this is telling me Bank of England might be a good choice for him. So mercantilism, and then this one, to get the bonus, there is no bonus on this one. So these are rare to get one that has no bonus at all. But these 2 have mercantilism. So mercantilism is the East India Company. So now East India Company is becoming attractive for him. So I think we're going to pick Bank of England and East India Company. And the Bank of England being so he could play both of these events, right? Without needing a tile. And then this one, the mercantilism, is going to give him 2 of the bonuses. So that's what we're going to do. That choice ended up being actually really easy for him. Now, if you really want to overanalyze this, there's probably other choices that he could have made. But we're not going to do that because we're trying to play an AI. We're trying not to cheat too much in knowing what he's going to do. And we'll just leave that as that. Okay? So next thing we're going to do is get into the action phase, which I will do in the next video. So thanks for watching. As always, stay awesome. And in this day and age, stay healthy and safe.